everyone, welcome back to the channel. Hope everyone is doing great, or at least getting by. Hopefully the latter. Today we're going to be diving into a topic that's on a lot of people's minds right now. It's what's going on with America's economy. Like, where are we headed? Specifically, how does it affect the younger generations, millennial and Gen Zs, as they are striving to reach the so-called American dream? Many people, they're looking to start careers, they're looking to change careers into something better, they're looking to buy a home, they may even think about retiring someday. Many people are not having families, but many people still are having families. So all these things affect what's going on in people's lives economically. Now we're here in the beginning of Donald Trump's second term, his presidency, and this is why I want to share my rationale for, in the current economic climate, why a job or a traditional career is not really working anymore, and the importance of starting or buying a business, and how this is a fourth economy in a way that's beyond knowledge work, and we're more into a space where we need to start, buy a business, grow our business through acquisition to find different ways. It's more of an independent economy if we want to be able to survive and thrive in the current landscape. So without further ado, let's jump in. First, what's the state of the economy right now? Under President Trump leadership for the last week, we've seen some encouraging signs. We've seen some signs that send some mixed messages, such as yesterday, we saw that the president was going to put a halt on all government loans and programs, and we don't know what really that is going to affect, if it's going to affect things like SBA lending, which could have a huge effect on obviously the small business environment that I'm working in and that we're working in at Roth Acquisitions. So this could have a major impact. I personally do not think that it will affect SBA, because it would be not a good move for the American economy to cut SBA lending. I think he meant more to cut programs for things like DEI and other type of government spendings into institutions that kind of promote things that do not have a positive economic impact. I don't really believe his intention was to cut funding for programs that generally promote economic improvement, but I don't know. At this point, it's kind of in a time of uncertainty a little bit. It's a time of optimism, but it's also a time of uncertainty. Most likely, many sectors are going to benefit from tax cuts. We're going to benefit from some deregulation, which is always good, but it's at the federal level, so depending on what state you live in. We're still in kind of an uncertain time here, but it's a time of still optimism. We have a lot to be optimistic about. Pro-business president. Things seem to be moving generally in the right direction, and people are getting optimistic while still highly uncertain. We're still grappling with, especially on the level of the average person, a lot of inflation, which has been left over from the last 4 years, and wages are pretty stagnant. So if you're depending on a job to pay your bills, and you want to buy your house, you want to do this with a job, most likely, unless you're one of the few that has one of these very high-paying jobs, you're not going to get very far with that in today's economy. Sorry to sound negative, but sometimes the truth is not positive. I always try to be optimistic. I always try to be positive. I always try to be bullish, but sometimes the facts are the facts, and we have to acknowledge them as it is. In our current climate, most likely if you're working a job, it's not going to be enough. As we can see from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, we see that earnings for full-time workers are about just shy of $1,200 a week, $1,192. So that's per week. You're making around a little less than $1,200. If you look at the median rents in a major city, for example, in New York City, you're approaching $3,000. So right away, you can see the disconnect. Again, not everyone lives in New York City, but even if the rent is $2,000 for a one bedroom, that's half your, that's a little bit less than half your income. It's still significant. And if food, everything is more expensive, basically it ends up to a picture where the majority of people are kind of barely making ends meet, or many people are actually in debt, just not through irresponsible spending, but just through costs that come up, and things are getting very expensive, and it's easy to fall into debt, and people still want to live. You have something called doom spending as well, where people see that they're never really getting ahead, and they're like, what the heck? I'm gonna just go on this vacation and charge it with the credit card. Like, what's the worst that's gonna happen? I'm not making any money anyway. I'm not gonna, it's a very depressing. A lot of people are dealing with a very kind of demoralizing picture with their career prospects. So we have, unfortunately, that to contend with. On the other side, there's a lot of optimism, It's a great opportunity to get into business. Still, America offers a better opportunity than anywhere else in the world. So we have huge amount of optimism, but not everyone is feeling that, because not everyone may be the type A personality to go the entrepreneurial route, and a lot of people are struggling, living paycheck to paycheck. Many people are still carrying student loan debt, which is huge. You've got 1.7 trillion student loan. It places a very heavy burden on the younger generations, and a lot of the boomers, where the wealth is consolidated, they're holding an enormous amount of wealth. I don't have the statistic in front of me, but you can go look it up. That wealth is not necessarily being passed down. As people are living longer, we see that not being passed down to the younger generations. This is why, a job alone is probably not going to cut it anymore. Let's be honest, the good old formula, go get a job, save for retirement, buy a house, it's not as simple as it used to be. It doesn't really even work for most people. The reason is basically we have stagnant wages and we have rising costs. It's simple, if you're not making any more money and things cost way more expensive, there's no way you're not going to be able to keep up. We got median annual wage at $61,984. Rising cost of essentials like housing, groceries are way outpassing that. Money's not worth as much as it used to be. It's a fact. It's inflation. So rent, housing costs, really expensive. That's what you make. Groceries, insurance, cell phone, everything, just your day-to-day needs of life. If you make around $62,000 per year before tax, it's going to be very difficult to live in today's world. You may have to have 2 incomes, but working so much, it may delay family life. Comes with a lot of negatives, and really the best answer is you need to make more money. Whether you like it or not, whether people like it or not, people need to make a lot more money now, and they need to do it in a way that they create, because the system is not really creating so many avenues. The system of getting a job and working for other people and things like that are not creating so many avenues now to make enough money as people really need to live. Even when you go into higher levels into an organization, even if you make 100,000 in many areas, it's not really enough. You make 150. Life now is very, very, very expensive, and we need levels of income that highly surpass what was considered to be a good income in the past. Many people, they feel like they're on just a treadmill. It's kind of set to incline mode or on a stair stepper, and you just keep going up and walking and working and working and working. And no matter how hard you work, you have 2 jobs, you might do 1 job and drive Uber on the side and do DoorDash and do this and do that, but you're not really going anywhere. You're just on the hamster wheel. So really the only path that I think is even really worth considering for a huge number of people, I would say the majority, is ownership. You have to own what you do. You have to create your own path. And even though maybe you don't have the personality for it, the alternative is not very attractive. I think we're in an environment where a lot of people are just going to be forced, the hand is going to be forced to do something, to go on their own, to push. I can speak from personal experience. Me, honestly, I'm not someone that has naturally, I think, a super entrepreneurial, if you want to call it, personality. Like me, if I could, I would much rather just have someone pay me a lot of money. They tell me exactly what I have to do, and I get paid hand over foot. I have a nice life. I don't have stress. I just show up 9 to 5, enough money for me to buy a nice house, drive a beautiful car, go on a couple of nice vacations per year. I would love it. But frankly, it's not an option for me. I don't have a choice. It's not an option for me to do that, because if I decide to take that path, I'm not going to have the nice house. I'm not going to have the vacations. I'm not going to have the lifestyle. It's not going to give me enough. So kind of my hand was forced, but it's actually been something positive for me, because I've gotten to a higher level than maybe I would have if I would have lived in previous generations, when it was easier to go work in that job and have that dependability, because humans, we like things to be certain. Uncertainty is seen as a negative because it's going to happen. It's not certain. When we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, people get anxious. Now, unfortunately, who knows? It just is. We're living in an uncertain world. So we need to be very comfortable with uncertainty, and a lot of things that can help dealing with that. Religion can help deal with it, beliefs, managing anxiety, managing stress. But the path through, I believe, to success, it goes through uncertainty. We have to push through that uncertainty and be certain enough in ourselves that we're gonna eventually get to a destination that's gonna be better where we're at now. So not to digress, jobs are getting very hard to rely on unless you happen to be one of the few that maybe went through a top school, studied the right thing, made the right connections. I mean, that's great. I laud people that do that, and that's definitely a valid way to do it. But let's face it, most Americans were not in that position. We didn't go to the best schools. We didn't get to know those high-powered people and whatnot. We maybe just be dealing with a pretty average situation. But thankfully, there's a way to go through that. And still, there's an amazing opportunity for success. Ownership, I like to prefer ownership over entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship has connotation with kind of like the Elon Musks and super successful people, like entrepreneurs, but most people are just business owners. So I think I prefer business owner to entrepreneurs. Entrepreneur has all this type of baggage and all. It's kind of a different thing. Many people have been business owners. People call them entrepreneurs now, but it's really just, you're just a business owner, someone who's starting a business. You're owning what you do. You have equity in what you do. So leads me to the next point, small business. They're making up 44% of all US economic activity. Now, the United States is sort of the world's biggest economy. 44% is small business. That's enormous. That's an enormous opportunity. It means that millions of people are already being successful doing this, doing small business, and they're creating massive opportunities. They're creating massive opportunities for themselves, because I would be willing to bet that most of those people, if they were to go into the job market tomorrow and try to get a salary, try to get hired at a job, doing the same thing that they're doing right now in their business, they would not get a salary of anywhere near what they're earning, owning and running that business. So they could be doing essentially the same thing as they're doing now, doing it for somewhere else, making much less. They're doing it for themselves, making much more. So this is really key, is people don't really think of it like that. You could be, let's take the example of the chef. The chef works running someone else's restaurant, doing the ordering, dealing with staff, making the menu, doing everything that's involved with the running of the restaurant. You could do a restaurant manager, chef, restaurant manager, whoever you want to call it. He's basically running that person's restaurant for someone else that owns that restaurant. And he may be overseeing the chef, but he's not working the same hours as the chef. He's overseeing, he may be doing the books, he may be doing a couple things behind the scenes, but he's not doing the same thing yet he's making obviously more money than the chef is in most situations. So the chef may be getting a salary of $60,000 a year, and the owner maybe he's making $100,000 a year. But if the chef would be actually the owner of his own restaurant, he would be making $160,000 a year, because he's making the salary of what the owner makes, plus he's making, the salary that he's being paid, because he's running the thing himself. So a lot of people are in situations like that, where they're doing something for someone else, which they could be doing, for themselves, and making way more money. And it's not like something revolutionary where you have to come up with some type of reinvent the wheel and come up with some revolutionary idea that changes how people think about the world and is like a life-changing thing. It can just be like simple as like, all right, I'm doing something for someone else, I'm just gonna go do it for myself now. And I'll make that gap in between whatever that other person is making off me and making off the business in general, plus what I'm already doing. And then I can eventually phase out, and I can be that guy who's just overseeing the operation, and I have other people working under me doing that. And it doesn't have to be like a kind of, people get that thing like capitalism is kind of evil because you're exploiting that one to make more. But especially in people in college and things like that, they have a lot of bad ideas from, I would say, leftist professors. I don't really get political, but certain political bents have ideas and philosophies that are kind of antithetical to be generating wealth and earning money. And most of those tend to come from the left, not all, but the majority. Beliefs that are kind of self-defeating beliefs when it comes to earning money come from that side of the spectrum, what people are being taught in universities, which is actually terrible, as universities are the place where people are going to learn how to make a career and make money. So in theory, at least, I don't know, maybe that's not the point of universities anymore, but from what I would see it as a university, why would you go? Is you can have a good career, you can earn money. But it's kind of all got mixed up. That's why I'm bringing it up. So it's not really exploiting, because when someone just comes in to an industry, they need training, they need to work for a little bit. I'm not saying, if you're like 22 years old, you just graduated school, you should immediately go start a business, because you probably don't have the skills yet to do it, but you should go work for someone else with the idea that eventually in 3-4 years and 5 years, however long it's going to take you to get the required expertise, you are going to then start your own thing. You shouldn't go with the idea necessarily that you're going to move up with the company and that, because we're not really seeing that in the real world. For most people, some people, yes, that is a valid path. You're successful climbing the corporate ladder. I would say more power to you. I respect you fully. I'm not disrespecting anyone for working a job. And if they're doing really well with it, sometimes you can do much better with a job than you can with a business. But the majority of people, they were gonna do better with a business, because they would just simply not be able to get a job, even if they work up in the higher levels, that will be able to pay them the same as they wouldn't be making with their own thing. That's the level to chef. If you just graduated from, for example, if you just graduated from the culinary school, you're gonna go and you're gonna work until you build up kind of the knowledge that you need to be a chef. But you don't wanna go past that. So if you work for 3 years after you graduated, you know what you're doing, you're good, you're ready, go do it. Don't wait 10 years, there's no point. In that job, you may top out at, there's some opportunities where you can get a high salary. Look at the majority, even for an experienced person, you're not gonna get much more than $100,000 per year. And after tax, what is that? 70 grand? So you see that in that particular industry, you have to be an owner. And that's in many industries the same. Like if you're a plumber, you're working for someone else. I don't know, I've seen some instances of plumbers making good money working for someone else, but usually you have to own your own business. If you're doing construction, you have to own your own business. And these are opportunities when you own your business. You could earn, multiple 6-figure incomes when you're an owner, which you really cannot do if you're working for someone else in those industries. So that's wherein the real opportunity lies. If you're, for example, if you're doing construction or if you're doing flooring, for example, if you're a guy who lays flooring and you've gotten good at it, maybe you probably need to think about starting your own flooring business, because you're never gonna make what you need to make as an employee. You need to start, you need to do your own thing. And you have actually an advantage over people who have gone to college and learned nothing but BS theories of whatever, because you actually know how to do something that people need. People need floors. So you're gonna go out, you can lay floors, you know how basically the business works. You need to just get some general business knowledge, which you can do online, reading books, and kind of learning along the way, being careful and learning along the way, getting good advice. So this is wherein I believe the real opportunity lies in today's economy. We have to become owners. We have to be able to take any marketable skills that we have, skills that people are willing to pay for. We don't have any skills that people are willing to pay for. Maybe we have general business skills and knowledge that we can take to another business and put that into that business to make it grow. That may be more advantageous for people in that situation to buy a business, or people that already have family that need more money more quickly. They have some money to start out with, or can get some money, is to buy a business, which is also a great way to go. It's a more certain way to go than starting your own business. But like I said, we're getting control of your own income, which you will not have in a job. You cannot control your income. No matter how much money you're making in a job, you're still not going to control your income, and you can get fired at any time based on the whims of the company. It's not always, I'd like to say that it's always like people that do really well, if you work the hardest, if you do that, but sometimes politics and things like that, people just don't like you, people are threatened by you, you can get fired for different things, and it can happen at any time. And then once you get fired, dependent on getting another job that replaces that income, which may be difficult. When you're an employee, you really don't have that. Also, when you're an employee, you're not building any equity, you're not building any assets. So equity really is owning something. It's having ownership over a thing. So if you buy a house, you have a 20% down payment. If you buy a house for $500,000, $500,000, put down $100,000 as 20% equity. That is the part that you own of that house, and the rest, $400,000, is debt. When you pay down that debt, your equity grows and grows and grows. Same thing for a business. If you start a business today, you have 100% equity. The business is worth nothing because you haven't sold anything yet. But once you have an income, say, if you've generated after the first year, you have $100,000 in cash flow from that business, then right away, the business can be valued at 3 times earnings, let's say 2 or 3 times earnings. So you have something, you have equity, 100% equity in an asset that is worth $200,000 to $300,000 that you've created. You make $100,000, but you have a cash generating organism, which is the business, that becomes now something that is valuable on its own. It is now an asset, and you have equity in that asset. So with a job, you will never really get that. You have yourself as an asset, your own skills, but you can only sell yourself by getting another job. When you have a business, it's something that you have equity in, that you own, independent of yourself. You can step to the side, especially if you create systems generally without you, and you can then step to the side and sell that to someone else for money in return. You've created a valuable asset, and the longer you work in the business, and not necessarily the longer you work, but the more cash flow that you're able to generate with that business, the greater amount of equity and the greater worth that asset will have. So over the years, over your career, you generally, if you work a job, when you retire, they generally don't give you, unless you're one of like the top CEO, I don't know, like on the stratosphere levels of the American corporate world, not gonna walk away with millions of dollars in retirement bonus, as we would call it. But in a small business, you can sell your business. Say it's doing $1 million. If you're making $1 million, you're 65 years old and you're making $1 million a year from your business in cash, it's coming into you, then you can exit that business, let's say modestly at 3 times earnings. You walk away with an extra $3 million in cash. It's not bad to walk away with an extra $3 million. When you're on your retirement, you can do a lot with that. You can help your kids, you can help your family. If you're not into helping, you can just live it up and just to hell with your kids. Let them make it. I did, That's the attitude of a lot of baby boomers that I speak to. They don't want to help their kids. I mean, that's personally, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think you should help your kids, especially it's not easy today. And they have to realize that when baby boomers were coming up, and maybe they spent like $80,000 in their first house, now it costs $1 million. But I don't get into that. That's a personal thing. If people want to do that or not, whatever you want to do with your money, but still, it's nice to have a $3 million bag when you leave, or even $1 million. Even if you're making $300,000, you do 3 times earnings, $900,000, boom, you graduate. You can do a lot of good for yourself, your family with $900,000. But if you just leave a job at the end of your career, you're not going to have that freedom. You control. You're not dependent on someone else. You're not under the whims of another person. Yes, on the one hand, it's more stressful because you have to run everything. Everything ultimately comes down to you. But you have the freedom to do what you want in your business, to do what you think is generally best for your business. You can look at the data, you can make educated decisions, you can say, we're gonna go this way, and you don't have to be dependent on convincing your overlords of the correctness of your actions, which is liberating. You do have to still be selling yourself to your employees and being that boss and being that leader. That is always, you're always answering to someone. If you're not answering to the boss, you're answering to your employees in a way. Your employees are answering to you, but you have to be that leader that creates the environment, the organization, that people can follow you, that they feel secure in your presence, that you are someone that has a vision, you're going somewhere, you care about them, you care about the organization, all of that, but it does come with a certain freedom and a certain, you're in the driver's seat, which is, at least to me, amazingly beneficial to mental health, to know that you're in control, that you do not have to ask for permission, you don't answer to other people, and you still may answer to people if you have investors and things, there's a good possibility, depending on the size of your business, that you're still gonna have to answer to people if you having to raise money and things like that. But lastly, freedom. When you work for yourself, you get an enormous amount of freedom, and that gives you peace of mind, is that you still have the equity, you still have the assets. If one thing doesn't work out, it still goes to the next thing. Nothing is ever super cut and dry, like this is the perfect thing. This like business ownership is the perfect way. Employment is the perfect way. There's always gray areas. It's not black and white. All I'm trying to say with this is that for the majority of people, a majority of Americans in the situations that they find themselves in today's economy, ownership is the best route, I would argue, for the majority. So I'm gonna give you some actionable steps that you can work on to kind of make these ideas more concrete. How can you take all these ideas and turn them into some concrete action? Because taking nothing. Ideas are nothing if we're not acting on them, if we're not implementing them. So, here's some steps you can start today. You can basically take a deep dive into yourself. This is always the first thing. You have to start with you and really take a deep dive. If it may be just right away apparent, like I can do this, people pay me for it already. Like I'm great I give amazing haircuts, barbershop, that's it. Or whatever it is. You gotta look at yourself and say, what can I do that people need and they're gonna pay me for it? And I can do it well enough that people are gonna need it and they're gonna pay me for it. That's the quickest way to just right away get in and make money. Some ways it may be easier, like if you're a barber, it's quicker to start a barber shop and cheaper than for a chef to go start a restaurant, especially if he doesn't have any money. Obviously, just look at them right there. What can I do? What are people willing to pay me for? Is there something I can do today? And then, if that fails, if you don't say like, I'm not really coming up with anything that I can start easily that people are willing to pay me for. Try to think of what you could do that people will pay you for. Like what area could I get into that people would value what I do and they would be willing to pay for it. So, what is it? Are you naturally drawn to tech? Are you super into fitness? Can you do something in that area? Are there any services like home services are you a great handyman? Can you fix things? There are many different avenues where you can start depending on your personal situation. Are you single? Do you have kids? Are you in a relationship? Whatever will kind of determine what you'll be able to do as well. Another thing I suggest is look at businesses for sale. Look on BizBuySell and other similar websites. Not necessarily, you may not be wanting to buy a business or not, but just look on what type of businesses people are out there doing and selling. And this kind of will give you an idea of what is out there in your area. Either take that as inspiration to go start one, because you may say like, oh, lawn care. All right, this guy's here, he's making $100,000 a year. He's got a lawn care business he started 3 years ago. And he wants to sell it for $325,000. What do you really need to start a lawn care business? Maybe you need a truck, a lawnmower, some basic equipment that you can buy at Home Depot. So maybe you'll say, all right, it's not worth, I'm not gonna buy this guy's business, but if he did it in 3 years, maybe I can do the same thing. Instead of buying his business, I'll go and start hustling and do it myself. Especially if you have some basic experience, you've worked in it before or something. Or you can say, all right, maybe I'll get some money together, I'll buy a business, SBA loan. You can buy businesses with 10% down. If you're buying a $300,000 business, you can scrape together like 30, 40 grand. Already you're into something that's at least gonna generate some cash flow, and you can grow it and try to look, obviously you want to look for something that has growth potential and something that fits with your skill set and whatnot. But these are just places where you can start looking for it, start getting into that mindset. The earlier you can possibly do it is possible. Even if you're still in the learning stages, you're still learning your career and a job, get out there and see like what is going to be the next steps. Because I'll tell you, like I wasted so much time in my own life, and hopefully I can pass on this knowledge, what I've learned, help other people get an edge and get to where they need to be sooner than later. I would suggest heavily start building business skills. There's a great book, it's called The Personal MBA. It's a great starting point basically on the bare bones basics of how business works, and it goes through all the aspects of a business. You don't need to get an MBA program if you're in school, in university, college. Maybe a good idea to major in business administration if you don't really know what to do, because it will apply to pretty much everything is business. Everything is about making money in a career. So it's good to have that basic business fluency and basic business background can and will help you. If you didn't go to business administration, then you can learn this stuff. It's not like rocket science. You're not going to become an expert in it, but you need to be able to read basic financial statements. You need to understand basics of accounting. You need to understand what is sales, what is marketing. These are the business basics. If you just have a skill, you may not really know about business, and it may be difficult for you to succeed. So we need to have this type of basic business knowledge, core business knowledge that obviously you're learning while you're doing, but some things need to be learned. So basic business fluency, getting the core knowledge. You can read those For Dummies books, like Small Business for Dummies, things like that. They're actually, I read them. Like they're obviously you're not going to be like a Harvard MBA after you read them, or even a lesser school MBA, but it's hell of a lot cheaper, and you're going to get the basic knowledge. And believe me, there's people running $1 million businesses right now that they have like terrible business knowledge, not doing any marketing. They don't even know what it is. Sales, everything is fly by the seat of the pants. accounting, they just throw it to their accountant, the books, everything is a mess, but they're making money. Like, so think about it. If you actually come with some basic business knowledge into a business that you're starting, that you're buying, you still have a huge leg up, you know? Next thing, save, find funding. That's very important, is the funding part of it. It's the gas in the car. Where are you gonna get the money from? You need money to start a business. It's very difficult to start a business with no money. If you have no money, basically you can work your job and kind of be like a content creator or something like that, but that can be kind of difficult because it can be a long road to making money. I know I'm starting it right now, but that's not my plan of how I'm gonna make all my money, is through content creation. Like I'm not planning on doing that as my primary activity. It's something I do with the side. It's a marketing activity to bring in leads and whatnot to my business. It's just one of the activities I'm doing. It's not my primary means of making money. Probably never will be. You need some money to get, either borrow it from someone else, save it if your situation allows for savings. You need to figure out how you're gonna get that money equation part, where you can borrow it. Sometimes you can convince people to provide you the equity to get into a deal. Well, that's difficult, especially as you're getting into bigger deals, or even on the smaller deals. If it's too small, there's kind of like a sweet spot. May be able to get some seller financing to get into a deal, or choose a business that you can start for like, I don't know, $10,000 or something, or you know, test out business concepts before you're gonna do it. Lastly, you gotta think about taking calculated risks. Now, if you're risk averse especially, and sometimes if you're on the other end, like you have a huge appetite for risk, we don't take calculate. That was me, like when I was young, I was like all about taking risks, but I didn't calculate, I just jumped right in. Obviously, I slammed my head into the wall like more times than I care to recount. It's great to take risks. You need to take calculated risks. You need to know what you're getting into. I would just like try anything. I'm like, risk, boom, like let's do it, boom, like whatever. A lot of the times, frankly, I'll be honest, like I didn't have the skills to pay the bills at the time. 100% honest. Like if you don't have the skills to pay the bills, you take a risk, you throw yourself into a difficult situation. It's like someone's offering you $1 million if you beat Mike Tyson in a fight. $1 million is sitting behind Mike Tyson, you gotta beat him. Should you step into the ring and give it a shot? Unless you're a fighter that can have a chance of beating him, you're not gonna get that $1 million. It doesn't matter, so don't step into that ring. You're just gonna he might kill you with one punch. You know what I'm saying? So you gotta take calculated risk. That is an uncalculated risk. But the $1 million is right there. All I gotta do is somehow I can figure out, I'm gonna get around him, I'm gonna do this. And like, no, you're not. You're not. You will not beat him. So some opportunities in business are like that. Like you just do not have the resources, the skills, the backing to be able to surmount that situation. So you need to see it in the beginning and say, even though it's very attractive, the pot of honey on the other side for your particular situation and it will not work. So you need to be honest about that. I made that mistake many times. I got into situations where the reward was huge, but didn't personally work for my situation. I was either undercapitalized, which was like a lot of the times my mistake in business is many times I was just it means that I didn't have enough gas in my tank to get to the point where I needed to go to really start making the business flourish, because I did it mostly without backing, with just little backing. Important thing to keep in mind, risks, but calculated. You have to be ready. You have to be like, all right, I feel good about this. It works with me, it works with what I can do, it works with my situation, and I'm gonna go do this, and it's a calculated risk. Calculated risk is usually have a better chance of working than not working. Bounce it off a couple people and see what they say when you're about to take the risk. You don't want to go to overly negative people, but if you have anyone in your court that's a straight shooter that tells you how it is, they're gonna tell you what's up. They're gonna tell you, all right, buddy, you're gonna succeed, or this is maybe not for you. Okay? But remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about progress. And most importantly, some people, they kind of tell me that I'm negative, that I have a negative spin on generally the economy and everything like that. But I don't see it as negative. You have to go into things with your eyes open, but you have confidence, ultimate confidence in yourself. You say, I'm gonna do what's necessary to make it. I'm going to make it. I don't care, what everyone says, but I'm going into battle with the strategy. It's like the difference between Julius Caesar and the raging hordes of barbarians. If you know anything about history, Julius Caesar, he was fighting in Gaul, which is France, the hordes of Celtic barbarians. Obviously, the Celtic barbarians were hugely motivated to beat him and get the Romans out of their country, but they were not organized. They didn't have the same planning and strategy as the Romans, as Caesar, and they did not have the financial resources that the Roman Empire had. Ultimately, Julius Caesar and the Romans ended up crushing barbarians and incorporating them into the Roman Empire. Because no matter how motivated they were, you've ever seen these movies, these crazy barbarians, they're running in, they're full on, like whatever, freezing cold out, they're naked, they're going nuts, like they have so much confidence, but they just get annihilated because they didn't come in with the proper strategy, they didn't come in with the proper resources, and the Romans are highly organized, they have huge financial resources, and they came in with a solid battle plan of how we were going to defeat these people, where we're going to place our armies. It's a military strategy, so we need to think the same way in our own lives when it comes to business and earning money. You can beat your chest and say, like, I'm gonna make it. You could do, like, I love Tony Robbins, like jumping up and down and all that, but there's gotta be something behind what you're doing. Like, you need to have that positive energy. It's amazing. You can accomplish a lot just on that, but you can also fall flat in your face because believe me, it happened to me. If you don't have the proper strategy, you don't have the proper resources, you don't have the proper organization and big picture of what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and everything that you can bring to the table to make something actually work, then chances are you're gonna hit failure, and failure is inevitable. Everyone makes mistakes. We can have the best strategy, we can have the best process laid in place, and we still fall flat on our face and fail. It's not, it is a bad thing. Failure sucks, but that can be part of the game. But at least okay, I learned something from this. I came in with the strategy, it didn't work. Because if you don't come in even with the strategy in the first place, you just come in with like, I'm like the fucking man, like no one can stop me, like I'm unstoppable, I am all powerful, like I'm like, God is, but God, believe me, God is with you, but God wants you to come up with your own strategy and figure out how you're gonna surmount these obstacles. God wants you to become a better person, a higher level person. So in ending, the American dream is still very alive and well. We just have to be smarter. No disrespect to previous generations, but we have to be better and we have to be smarter than our parents were, okay? American dream, we still got more opportunity though. We're still blessed because we have more opportunity than any other people in the history of the world. The opportunity is insane that we have right now. We can't look down on that, but we gotta be smarter. That's the thing. We have to improve ourselves. We have to get to the level that's higher than our parents were, and that's higher than we were previously. So through the process of learning, self-improvement, self-discovery, taking calculated risks, taking action, calculated action, with plans, with organization, with proper resources behind us, we're gonna win. Take that to the bank.